What's going on, guys, and welcome to Anteiku Nation, where we game and we know things. And today I want to talk about the break ride free DOTE deck that I've been showcasing in my viewer fight videos, and the success that I've been having behind this deck, and pretty much my thoughts on the DOTE deck in general and going forward in the new iterations that are going to be coming forward with the more support that we get with either Nouvelle or maybe the break ride and things of that nature. But before we begin, guys, please hit that like button if you like this video, smash that subscribe button, and click the bell so that you can be notified each and every time that I upload a brand new video. Alright guys, so this is a deck that's been catching a lot of people's attention in my videos. I had somebody actually ask me today on one of my videos that I just launched about whether or not you could play this in rank in the current meta, and I want to just quickly answer that with yes. Yes, you can run this deck in the current meta, and it is still very strong, it's still very powerful. And I want to take a moment to apologize because I originally fought with this deck. This was one of the decks that I was just like, it aggravated me the most because it was one of those decks that like, it just did not want to go off. And it felt like at times it was fighting against itself. And one of my friends challenged me. He was like, hey, I want you to build a break ride free deck. I want you to build a deck and see how it goes in the current meta, and see what you can do. And first thing that came to mind was DOTE. I was like, I love Kagero, I love dragons, and so I wanted to see what I could do with DOTE. I wanted to revisit this, and this is the build that I came up with. And honestly, guys, it's super consistent. It is super consistent for what it does. And for the most part, you might feel like you're not really doing a whole lot of things. You might feel like it's kind of vanilla, and there's a reason why I say that. But first off, let's go ahead and get into the cards, and then we'll explain things along the way. First off, there's Conroe. I did break down and buy the trial deck because I like the SP, and the SP just looks really cool. So Counterblast 1, retire this unit, add a grade 1 or less card from your deck to your hand. You are always going to go for the PG. There's no reason why you would not go for the PG unless you got unlucky and you've got like a handful of PGs. And I say unlucky because then it feels bad you got no other resources to really use, but it does happen sometimes. We do use the Seal Dragon Rhino Cross because like you don't really care if they take you to 5. Like, yeah, you could run Bari and let them only get you to 3 damage, but really you don't care if you're at 5 damage. Sometimes you actually want to be at 5 damage, and I'll explain that. So let's look at this. We run 4 of those. We are running filter cards. We are running 4 of Seal Dragon Kershi. So when placed, if your opponent has a grade 2 unit, you may discard a card, and if you do, draw a card. So it's drop, draw. Basically Gojo, just a little bit of different circumstances. And he's a 7k body, just like Gojo, so he does help make power columns behind like Striking or behind Bellicosity or your Berserk Dragons. I did decide to tech in 1 Salamander. This one was kind of up in the air whether or not I wanted to do Salamander or I wanted to do Bar, because Bar is 8k, and if you ride him, that feels pretty good because most people are riding 7k grade 1s at this point in the current meta. So Bar kind of feels good to kind of force them to do things sometimes that they don't want to do or to help guard you from certain attacks. But anyways, Salamander says that when the attack this unit boosted hits a Vanguard, you may retire one of your opponent's grade 1 rear guards. We'll return this unit to the deck at the end of turn. So basically, you can snipe their Dorant. So if you're going up against Revengers, snipe their Dorant. You're going up against Jokers, snipe their Lanthanums. Salamander puts in work. There was a reason why this card got ran in the TCG and why this card was a double rare. It may be even a triple, I can't remember. I know it was at least a double rare in the TCG when it first released. And there's a reason why this card is still good, and it's a recyclable retire unit. It even keeps you from preventing from being decked out in some cases. You're more likely not going to deck out, but in the off chance that it does kind of happen, it's there. Again, we do run Gojo. Gojo is a rest this unit, discard a card, draw a card. Basically what I like to do with this dude is if I'm going first and I have Gojo in my hand, and let's say I don't see my DOTE, and I got something that I'm like, okay, I could kind of get rid of this, I can discard it. Sometimes I'll ride Gojo, discard Kershi. I might ride Gojo, get rid of Gojo to draw into another card. And yeah, it feels bad when you don't get DOTE because you're in your mind, you're like, oh, give me my DOTE, give me my DOTE, give me my DOTE. And it doesn't always happen, but it does help you to just dig through the deck and try to thin it out a little bit and get the resources that you might need. So that's our grade 1 lineup. It's pretty solid. I don't really want to come off this. I have too much success with this, and I will say this though: if you wanted to, guys, you could opt out of Salamander for Airmo. Airmo's cool, but I've got so much filter going on in the deck, I just don't need Airmo at this point. I do like Airmo. I'm a huge fan of the card, but I'm also a huge fan of Tekken cards that allow me to do things that people don't expect me to do, like snipe cards that are a pain in the ass to deal with, like Brunos, Lanthanomes, Sukis, all those 7k grade ones that get power bonuses for whatever stipulation you meet. Yeah, this is what this thing deals with. It gets rid of the Dorrance, so now the Blaster Dark's not unflipping damage as soon as it hits the field in Revengers, or when Liberators can do that stuff later on when Blaster Blade Liberator gets his support. So nonetheless, Salamander puts in work. Let's just talk about our MVP right now in striking. This is one of my favorite grade 2s in the game. It's a mini break ride, and this card is just stupid dumb, and it's consistent. Oh my god, is this card just consistent? I can't tell you, I see this card so often. So when you ride this, when you ride it, you can't attack. Okay, it's got restraint, so it's all chained up, can't do anything. But on the next turn, when you ride your grade 3, you give your Vanguard a plus 5k and a crit bonus. Okay, so it's mini break ride. So for the one turn you don't get to attack with it, you're building up that momentum for the next turn. And then on rear guard, he doesn't have restraint, so he's a 10k grade 2, so it gets rid of their rear guards and it gives you a 10k attacker that still lines up pretty good with something behind it to boost it. I have teched in Burning Horn. I don't know how I feel about this card. It's a 12k attacker as long as you got Overlord, and yeah, you've definitely got Overlord. Like, you've got Dragonic Overlord the end, you got Dragonic Overlord the base form. So you've got 8 cards that are Overlord, and it's just there to kind of build power columns, maybe to climb over and give a little bit of extra threat, because there might be those instances where you don't have a booster, and yet he can swing in for that 12k to what normally is going to happen is either you're going to deal the damage or you're stripping the PG from their hand. So he puts you in a sweet spot, and that's the only reason why I've teched in the 1. Other than that, I don't like Burning Horn in this game, because 12k attackers, they're not as good in this game as they were in the TCG, in my opinion, and what I've actually seen of it. Next up is one of our other MVPs, is Bellicosity Dragon. Our grade 2 lineup, by the way, guys, is one of the sweetest grade 2 lineups. It is very powerful, and it just is a well-oiled machine. So when this unit attack hits a Vanguard, you may countercharge 1. There are so many times you can find yourself in a nice situation to be able to swing with Bellicosity and hit their Vanguard and get that damage unflipped. Like, my favorite combo is to go into striking on turn 2. Okay, I go ahead and I burn Conroe. Then I will, smack down a Bellicosity onto the rear guard, and I'll hit them for that 9k, because most of the time their Vanguards are 9k. Once in a while you will see the occasional 10k Vanguard, and when you do, normally I'll throw a booster. Normally it's going to be the Kershey or the Gojo, and sometimes don't be afraid to sometimes just throw Kershey down to give a booster, just so you can make sure you can unflip that damage, because sometimes unflipping that damage is just way more important, because getting a free perfect guard feels awesome. Next up is the card that just makes plays. Okay, I fought with myself and I talked with my boy Knight on this, and me and him were talking. I'm like, what can I do, Knight, to make this deck better? And he was like, dude, why aren't you running Berserk Dragons? And I'm like, I run a lot of counterblasts. Like, I have a lot of counterblasts in this deck. And I'm like, do I got room for it? And he's like, you should be running it. And I want to say this, I am glad that I put Berserk Dragon in this deck. I was in a match just the other day where I was going up against Link Joker. They locked my front row and my booster behind my Vanguard, okay? And I'm like, oh god, what am I going to do? And so, yeah, they triangle locked me. And then I had a Berserk in hand. I'm like, oh, they only got 1 grade 2. All of a sudden I saw a play. I'm like, I just flopped down the Berserk in the back row that didn't have a locked unit, and I killed their grade 2, allowing my Vanguard to snipe their Vanguard and actually win the match, all because I was able to just, make a play that without Berserk, I would not have been able to make. Not unless I went into blockade. But still, this thing helps to just get out, issues with the interceptors. Like, this thing is pretty much, I'm eating 2 interceptors. It is a 1 for 2 when you play it the right way, when you are able to snipe their units. And like, with the way that the game plays right now, like, you want to get through those grade 2s as often as you can to get into that sweet spot of hitting their Vanguard as often as you can, and being able to like get your Bellicosities in there so you can unflip damage. Just all around, this is a very solid grade 2 lineup. You can feel free, guys, if you want to change the Burning Horn to something else. I'm still thinking about taking it out for a 10k. I just haven't done it yet. I'm kind of lazy, so I'm not sure. Looking at the grade 3 lineup, let's go ahead and just start talk about my boy Dragonic Overlord. Okay, I am a Kagero fan now. I have always kind of secretly liked Kagero in the back of my mind, but I was too busy playing Paladins and playing Golds or Royals to allow myself to enjoy Kagero. But in Zero, I have just decided that I'm playing Kagero. So anyway, you don't really want to ride him on the Vanguard. He is still very, very important and super valuable on the rear guard. But there are times you only see him, and if you do see him and he's only grade 3, by all means, ride him. Just ride him, because then when you do cross ride with the end, it feels good to have that 13k beefy body on board. It makes it a little bit harder for you to be hit by their units, especially when you damage trigger. So yeah. Anyway, so his ability is CB3, he gets plus 5k, basically comes 16k. He loses twin drive, which on the rear guard doesn't really matter. And then it says this, when this unit attack hits a rear guard, you may stand it. So basically, he just says, nom nom nom, I'm gonna eat all your front row. Okay, he's Vermilion in a different sense. Okay, he was Vermilion before Vermilion was even a thing. And I love what he does, because you get rid of the interceptors, and then you let him stay 16k. You put a 7k behind him, that's 23,000. And here's my thought process behind it, is that I like to go ahead and swing with the other the other units. So if some reason I hit with Vanguard first, or I hit with the rear guard, in those lucky situations where they don't damage the way that they should with damage triggers, you can get them in a really bad spot, because then you can swing with Vanguard or swing with rear, unflip it damage if you've got bellicosity, and then you can swing with your Vanguard, and again, if things just fall a certain way, then you've still got a 23k column sitting there waiting after that one unit's already ate their 2 resources. And better yet, if you do actually hit a trigger, then you give it the power, and then all of a sudden it's a 28k column, or it is a 33k column. It just gets kind of stupid what this thing does with the booster behind it, and the situations that it lends itself to be in. But your main focus is always going to be to get the end. You really want the end, and you want to be able to get that Persona Blast, because now at this point in time, the way that the deck flows, the way that it works is if you get a copy, you don't want to try and bank on, oh god, am I going to get all 3 copies or all 4? Just forget it. Forget having 4 copies of the end at one given time. Yeah, it can happen. That's Magical Christmas Land. But what you want is you want to be able to ride 1 copy, and you want at least 1 copy in hand. Okay, because at that point, even if you can't seal the deal and you know that it's not going to be enough to actually just finish out the match, the ability to still drop a card and be able to just, CB2, restand, and swing for 2 more drive checks, and you draw 2 cards, you're getting a lot of value off of that. So even if it only happens once in the game, that's perfectly fine. It's going to do 1 or 2 things. Either you're going to net some advantage over it, or you're going to still put them into a bad spot. And there are times where I have actually been able to burn Overlord skill in the rear, and I had enough counterblast that I was able to still use the 1 DOTE skill, because I knew how I was going to be sitting, and I planned it out methodically so that I would use Overlord to just go ahead and eat their units, and then I'm going to proceed to smack this, because then at that point, when you use the Overlord and you burn the 3 counterblasts, at that point they're just kind of they don't really think you got the other DOTE, and you kind of take them by surprise at that point, and you pressure them. And that always feels good. And there's just a lot of value that these 2 cards between him and his base form generate. Don't let anybody tell you that Overlord's bad. Overlord is so good that the 3 counterblast doesn't even feel bad. When you can just eat their entire front row and you get 3 attacks off of 1 unit, that 5 altogether, maybe 6 as long as you get Overlord or the ends ability off. It's just so much. There's so much value. It's really stupid. There are some notable tech ends. My heal trigger, because I only have 3 copies of Steel Dragon Blockade. If I had 1 more, I would have 4 copies. All of your opponents lose intercept. Nobody, for the most part, sees this coming anymore. You don't see Kagero in the meta right now. Even though Steel Dragons are super abusive, it's unfortunate that I did not get to flesh out the deck because the cards did not fall into my lap yet. I'm working on that. But he is super good. I have won matches because of just throwing him down. Like, I've been sitting on like the end, and I'm like, you know what? It's time to go big, go home. And you just go into a blockade, and you still win matches the same way we did almost a year ago when the game came out. Blockade still does what he does, and it's beautiful. Tech in time. Okay, waterfall. I put this in here because I just didn't see anything like too extravagant that literally was like, oh, let me use that right now. I don't like dual axe. He's too situational to get his power bonus, and he sucks on the Vanguard. But this card here is like, when this unit attacks, the Vanguard gets 3k. When this unit attacks, discard a grade 3 to get plus 10k. It just lends itself to be able to hit magic numbers and to climb over heal triggers, or those miracle heals, or to climb over damage triggers in general. He still does what he does, and he does it fairly well, and that's just to be a giant Vanguard beat stick, and so I'm kind of a fan of that. Next up is going to be Chain Blast Dragon. Some people be like, what the heck are you doing? Like, what are you doing, Anteiku? This card's not that bad. I have been able to play him, and just when I'm in a situation where like I've got extra overlords in hand, I'm like, I'm not doing anything with this. I'll counterblast one, ditch the overlord. I just blew up 3 of the resources. Like, it just does it. So you know, you got triangle lock. I got triangle explosions going on because of my boy Chain Blast Dragon here. Again, he's just a tech in. He's for fun. By all means, guys, do what you want to with this deck as far as your grade 3 lineup goes, or your little salamander or your burning horn. There's only a few options in here. I would really suggest that you can take the time to be like, oh, I want to change this and do what feels best for me. By all means, do that. But for a break ride free deck, this deck puts in work. I'm a huge fan. I love it. I love Overlord. He is now my absolute all-time favorite unit. It used to be Ezel, but I've just become a huge fan and lover of Dragonic Overlord and all of his iterations, because he is just really cool looking and really powerful in all that he does. So yeah, guys, that's my thoughts and opinion on this deck, why I run this deck, and I've got multiple footages and streams to back up why I like playing this deck in this format. And so I hope that this deck finds you well. I hope that you have a lot of success if you decide to run this deck as it is, or you know, try to do your own version of this deck. But if you have any thoughts or opinions, guys, please drop them in the comments below. Let me know what you're thinking about this deck, or things that you might do differently. And as always, guys, please stay strong, stay healthy, and happy gaming.